You may have heard the news that Ray Dalio says that Bitcoin is going to be outlawed. Obviously, this gets a lot of media attention because Ray Dalio is, his hedge fund, Bridgewater Associates, is the largest hedge fund in the world with 140 billion in assets under management. So he knows what he's talking about generally in finance. He's been called the Steve Jobs of investing after all. But firstly, I'm not sure why this news is blowing up now, because he said this back in November last year. Originally, he's just reiterating what he said back then. And the news headlines say, millionaire investor Ray Dalio says US will ban Bitcoin. Now, that's sort of missing the nuance in what he actually said. He said that he thinks it would be very likely that under certain set of circumstances, it could be banned. So that to me means, it could be banned in a number of ways, like maybe bank to wallet transfers get banned, which actually has happened in the UK. HSBC stopped Coinbase to bank transfers. In a research note published on the Bridgewater Associates website, he says, and I quote, "I'm writing to clarify what I think of Bitcoin. Please pay attention to what I'm saying here and not to those in the media." He goes on to say, "To reiterate, I am not a Bitcoin or cryptocurrency expert. I believe my views are not valuable enough to be relied on, so I shouldn't put them out." So he's quite open that he's not an expert in Bitcoin. He's just saying, based on, I think, what happened in 1934, where the US government banned privately held gold, he's saying that could be a possibility. And he also pointed out that India's government is already exploring outlawing Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies altogether. So I don't think it's a crazy suggestion from him. But is it likely? I don't think so, because last year the US Senate Committee on Banking held a hearing on cryptocurrency and blockchain regulation. And during that hearing, Senate Banking Committee Chairman Mike Crapo shared his belief that the United States would not be able to succeed in banning Bitcoin because, quote, "this is a global innovation." And that's the point, I think. How are they going to ban it if other countries are using it to their advantage? No one wants to be left behind. But personally, I'm on the fence as to if Bitcoin would or could be banned. I mean, in a recent video, Tom Nash, who I think is great, and I'll put a link to his video in the description, he says that you couldn't enforce a crypto ban. Perhaps that's true if all activity remained online, but they can definitely enforce a ban with crypto to fiat transfers. We know that. And Tom also says that Bitcoin would not be banned because there's so much gain for the US government coming from tax income. I disagree with this. The US government makes 3.3 trillion in tax revenue. And do you think that if we all used Bitcoin to store our money and pay for things, that they would get more or less revenue? I think, at the very least, they would get the same, because presumably our traditional fiat transactions would now just be digital, so we wouldn't be generating more revenues. But more realistically, they would get much less, because aside from anything else, people don't trade Bitcoin, they just buy it and hold it. So I don't think the government are thinking, oh, we're going to lose out on such a big revenue stream. I really don't think they are thinking that. And it could be very tempting to think, oh, they can't ban Bitcoin because there's too many big players, too many whales and hedge funds bought into it. But things can change really quickly. Look at the saga with Alibaba. Bill Gates has just sold 100% of his holdings in Alibaba. I don't know if that's because of the delisting fears or not, but it just shows how quickly the tide can change, and that's what it would feel like. You would just get a case of big whales and investment firms just selling their shares. There would be no big fanfare. It would just be, oh, it's banned, it's too risky, we're selling it. And that could happen quickly. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not, no, because it's so well established, and like they said in the Senate committee last year, it's a global innovation, a global phenomenon that you don't really want to be the only one not involved in that. The question becomes, what do they do if and when people start using it more as a day-to-day transactional technology? Which they may not, I don't know. It may always just be a store of value. Whatever the case being, if they can figure out how to tax it reliably, then there's no downside. And Ray Dalio did say that he believes they have a way of tracking the Bitcoin movements. Well, if that's the case, then they should be able to track it to be able to tax it. As long as they can track it and know what's going on, then there isn't an issue. I think the issue is if they can't track it, but obviously there's 1,000,001 other cryptocurrencies that people can trade in, so I think it'll either be a blanket ban or none at all, and I don't see how they can ban cryptocurrencies which are designed to not be tracked. And they must be aware that there's things that they perhaps aren't thinking, positives that could come in the future. Like, for instance, Cathie Wood recently said that she's worked out that the beta is very low, meaning it doesn't correlate. Bitcoin doesn't correlate to the overall indices. And its beta, which is its volatility, if you like, its swings, is less than the overall market. So if the market is having a drawdown, if you own Bitcoin, you're going to be protected to some degree because that Bitcoin is not going to be pulling down as much as the overall market. Well, that's the theory, and that's what she's worked out. Some stocks have a higher beta, which means they go up more than the market, but they also go down more than the market. They just bring more volatility into the mix. So it could be that as more and more hedge funds buy Bitcoin, it could be a stabilizing factor, which is good for the economy. There's a lot of uncertainties, but I just wanted to make this video to point out that there are nuances in what Ray Dalio said. It's not a question of it will be banned. He's just pointing out that this sort of thing has led to bans in the past, and it's always good to be open-minded to any potential scenario and make our own minds up about what we think. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up because it's very hard to grow without your support, and I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.